I heard they are incarnations of the sea devil. Supposedly, if you eat one, you will gain devil powers, but the sea will hate you and take your ability to swim. Welcome back, YouTube, and all you internet crawlers. Welcome to my channel, Blind Koala Reviews. I'm Kyle. Today we're going to be doing a review of the first 3 volumes of One Piece. Let's get into it. So before we get started into the actual review, I guess I should, give a little bit of an introduction to my history with One Piece, why I started to read it, why now I'm just starting to read it. It's 2021, over 1,000 chapters of One Piece. And my thought process was, hey, this is the, I believe it's still the second best-selling comic book of, anything, English, Japanese, any language. Of all time in the world. Like I think it's either Batman or Superman's #1, and I think probably at some point One Piece will pass it, because there's all sorts of things we can get into of the American comic book industry and the state it's in right now, but manga and One Piece, they're still selling really well, millions of copies, so I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, and it eventually could be the most popular comic in the world. And just on that alone, I felt just someone who reads manga and comics, I had to read it. You can't skip a series that has sold over 500 or what it's at, like 450 million copies worldwide. You're just doing a disservice to yourself. One Piece being as popular as it is, and with so many people, I've never heard someone who doesn't recommend One Piece. Anybody who's ever read or watched One Piece, I've always ever heard them just say great things about it and encourage people to watch it. It's just a lot of people, they don't do that because of the time commitment that it takes to actually get through the entire story and get to the parts in One Piece where you truly begin to realize how big of a world it is. I think one of the other reasons why I didn't start One Piece sooner as well is I've never really been into pirates, the pirate life, anything like that. It's not really a setting or a fantasy setting, if it's a fantasy that I've been interested in. I tend to, I think like a lot of people, use entertainment, movies, manga as escapism. And a lot of times I like to envision myself in these worlds. If I was these characters, what would I be doing? And, the pirate life, that's just never something that, like when I envision myself in it, it's like, oh yeah, that's something I want to do. No, that's just the total opposite of me, like being stuck on a boat for months. Just the everything about pirate lives and everything, it's just not my cup of tea. So, knowing that One Piece is a pirate, a manga about pirates, at first I was like, I don't know if I'll really like it. So it wasn't really until I got some more info from like reviews or people that I watch who I trust or friends about One Piece not being just about pirate life and it being, obviously it's more fantastical than any sort of real life pirate thing, but in that fantastical nature and sort of absurdist nature, you get away from, and at least in my opinion, the tropes and some of the things that I just don't find enjoyment in pirate stories. I didn't have that problem with One Piece. I thought I was going to maybe have to get used to the, pirates and, that sort of setting in the first few chapters, but, it didn't take too long before I was just, I was hooked and I was on board. So, no problem there. And obviously besides, all the recommendations and things I've read online about how One Piece, about how good One Piece is, it's just something that I wanted to experience because I feel like there's definitely things in it that will probably transcend the genre of, pirates, pirating life, and that sort of stuff, simply because this manga is so popular. There's clearly elements and things that, anybody could pick, take away from the story and, latch onto and find, some sort of common ground or see where, people are coming from. So I guess I should get into, why I chose to read One Piece instead of watch the anime of it. It seems that, from what I've seen online, most people tend to think that the manga is a lot more lean in the story. There's not as much padding. Obviously there's filler stuff, but you can skip that. I mean, you can skip that in the anime, but when I say filler, I don't necessarily mean like exactly filler, but from what I heard, a lot of the anime episodes, they extend scenes out to like fill out the time, whereas like maybe you'll just have one panel of like a shot of a character's face and you'll read through that in like a second, but in the anime they'll take like 5 seconds to just look at that one panel. So just on that alone, the time consumption is one of the main things why I chose to read the manga. But then it also seems like all the reviews I see, you go to any sort of anime or manga review site, and the manga is infinitely I mean, the anime still has high ratings, but the manga is even higher. Like, I think on my anime list, the One Piece manga is at like a 9.2 out of 10, and the anime's at like an 8.5 or something. So, still good. 8.5, that's still really good for an anime show, especially with how many episodes that One Piece has. But from what I've seen and everything I've read, people largely tend to agree that the manga is the best way to experience the story. But I will be watching the anime as I go along. I've already watched a couple scenes, specific scenes that I wanted to check out, see, maybe what the voice actors were for the certain characters, and also sort of like the costume designs, like the colors and whatnot, what they decided to do. And then I guess my last thing for the introduction before we get into the actual review and going over my thoughts on the first 3 volumes is I should let you guys know I have been spoiled on some things. It's sort of hard to be in the anime and manga world and not come across One Piece things. But most of the spoilers I have read and have come across, they're not necessarily story spoilers, and if they are, I didn't recognize them because I just don't know enough about the story and the plot of One Piece to understand what's going on. Most of the spoilers I've come across are just like character names. I know like what a name of a character is, and then maybe like who they are in the world. Like, so for example, the first one that comes to mind, I like I said, I don't know like pretty much anything about the story, but I do know that there's a character named Ace who is Luffy's brother. So outside of that, I don't really know much, but I just know certain characters, their names, and maybe like a relationship they have to another character in the world. But I think going forward as I continue, because I'm going to be hopefully reviewing the whole series, I'll probably mention when I come across different spoilers that I have been spoiled on. I'll probably mention them in the review, because I can't think of all of them right now. The Ace one just off the top of my head, because it's just probably one of the most... It was actually one of the first ones I remember I got spoiled on. I remember it was a YouTube thumbnail that spoiled me. So that's just something I'm gonna have to deal with as I go through the manga, but I don't think it's gonna be anything too serious, because like I said, if I do know spoilers about the plot, I'll have to come across them to remember them, because I can't think of any off the top of my head. So yay. Anyways, I think that's enough of the introduction, my backstory, my sort of history with One Piece, and what you can sort of expect going forward. But let's get into the actual review, why you guys were here. So like I said, this is going to be a review of the first 3 volumes. This is going to be a spoiler review. Maybe I'll do a spoiler-free review. I don't really think that it's really necessary to do a spoiler-free review on, a series like One Piece that's been around for so long. I feel like, you don't need me to tell you, the premise behind One Piece. You either already know it and, you've already read it. You don't need someone like me, someone who's, a noob to the One Piece world to tell you, what the story's about. So I was going to split this review up into 3 different parts. The first one's going to be just the setting and sort of the story so far. Talk about like what's happened so far in the plot, and then I'm going to talk about the characters, which ones I like, which I don't like, or things I like about certain characters and things I don't like about the certain characters. And then finally, I'm also going to sort of briefly touch on the sort of setting of One Piece and the world that we're in, and some of the things that we've learned about it so far. There hasn't been too much in the first 3 volumes, but there's some stuff there to talk about. So in terms of a beginning to a story, I actually really like these first 3 volumes. I know that I've seen elsewhere online and seen people say that, it takes a little bit, you got to get into a few volumes of One Piece before the story really starts to pick up. As soon as we got to the part of the story with Kobe and Luffy and, sort of their initial adventures, I was already hooked on the story. I liked Luffy. His introduction I thought was really good. I thought, it gave a good backstory, and potentially I'm almost certain we're going to see the character Shanks, who gives Luffy his straw hat, the infamous straw hat that everybody knows. I've heard of that name before, and I'm sure that he's going to show up later on in the story. When he's introduced, I don't know if it was really for a comedic effect or if it was supposed to be more serious, because a lot of the scenes, they're just really funny, and you can't, sometimes it's hard to tell if something that's happening is like something that's serious that needs, something serious happening in the story that needs to be taken serious, or if it's more of just a goofy gag or something. But the thing I'm talking about is when Shanks goes out to save Luffy after he's eaten the gum fruit that Shanks and his crew got from the Grand Line. Luffy's drowning and he's about to be eaten by the I think it's called the Lord of the Coast, that like sea eel dragon thing, and Shanks saves him in the process, losing an arm, which was pretty surprising. But he sort of like scares off this like sea dragon by like with just his look. So I thought that was like more of a funny thing. Like it was just sort of sort of in line with the silliness of these early chapters. But then I also think that it is something more serious to it. Like this is the first introduction to Shanks where it's like, okay, this is someone we have to definitely respect and keep an eye out for, because he's clearly going to be a powerful character in the story going forward. But I thought Luffy's backstory with him stealing the gum fruit from Shanks and his crew, and sort of his dream of becoming the king of the pirates because of his looking up to Shanks and sort of his admiration that he has for the pirates. I thought that established Luffy's character and his sort of motivations pretty well, and makes him a pretty likable character. So then obviously after the Luffy's backstory, we jump ahead like 10 years or whatever it is to when Luffy's a teenager now, and he's actually started to sort of not fully master the gum fruit or his gum powers, but he's able to use it as he's able to use it to fight, which we see him demonstrate against Alvida and her crew when he's saving Colby, and we get a first introduction into gum pistol, and just sort of how we get an idea of how rare devil fruits are. Obviously, we knew from Shanks and when Luffy first got the gum fruit, they were talking about how much they're worth and just how rare they are, and how they're supposedly from the sea devil, that gives you his powers. But we never, this is the first time we're actually getting to see not a gum fruit, but a devil fruit in action. But with Luffy meeting Colby and Colby joining Luffy on his adventure, and learning about how Alvida and them thought that Luffy was or knew about Zoro, which is the first time we hear about him. And he's obviously a character I had heard before I even started this. He's like Luffy. I think, those are the two most popular characters, and I heard of them, way before I had even begun One Piece. But they obviously then set off to go find Zoro and free him, because he's locked up at a Navy base on Shelltown. And on Shelltown is sort of where we get, sort of our look into the first sort of structures, hierarchy, I guess you could say, of the One Piece world, because this is where we first get to get introduced into the Marines organization, who are, I think they're sort of supposed to be like, the police, law enforcement of the sea. But from our first introduction with Captain Morgan, Axe Hand, and his son and everything, their first appearance isn't a good one. They're the antagonists to Luffy and Colby, and eventually when they decide to try to rescue Zoro from them, Zoro as well, and we're automatically already put against the Marines. So it's kind of interesting how Oda, from the very beginning of the story, is already presenting the people who are supposed to be the good guys, because Colby, he talks to Luffy about how he wants to grow up and become a Marine to catch pirates and stop them from like pillaging, stealing, normal pirate stuff. But in our first introduction to them, they're the bad guys, they're the antagonists. So I think that's obviously, I knew going into the story, like, we're going to be following Luffy and pirates, so it makes sense that we're going to be liking them the most, and so the people opposite them are obviously going to be antagonists. But you don't really expect that, since Luffy and Zoro and all his eventual crew, they're supposed to be the bad guys. But it's interesting how in almost all the scenarios that I've read so far, and specifically in the first Shelltown, the Marines are clearly positioned as the bad guys. But it's also in this, sort of Shell town little adventure of Luffy and Colby rescuing Zoro, where after they eventually beat Captain Morgan, and his son. What was his name? Helmeppo. That was his name. It's such a weird name. But after they defeated them, we sort of see how the lower ranked Marines, they were sort of, being ruled by fear. They didn't necessarily like Captain Morgan either. So I don't necessarily know if it's just going to be certain characters in the Marines that are going to be bad, or if it's going to be, a structural thing. Because so far, it seems like from what we've been presented, it's really depends on who a leader is that determines sort of how their underlings are going to act. And, that's sort of standard in a lot of things. But, when Captain Morgan was in charge of that island, the Marines were doing what he wanted them to do. Were, the bad guys terrorizing the village and whatnot. But as soon as they're defeated, Kobe and all the sort of Marines, when Luffy and Zoro are leaving the island, they thank them for coming here and, sort of rescuing them and saving them from, under the rule of Captain Morgan. So it's going to be interesting to see how Oda handles this going forward. Are the main antagonists supposed to be the Marines, or is it going to be other pirates? I'm not too sure yet. I mean, obviously, from what I've seen so far, it seems like it's the Marines who are going to be, the main antagonists. But obviously there's, pirates that they're going to come across. We're going to talk about Buggy and, his whole crew. But overall, I think the Shell Town part of the first volume, I think it's called Romance Dawn is the title of the arc. But saving Zoro and all that sort of stuff, that was a good introduction to, getting to the very beginning workings of what Luffy's going to be like with his pirate crew and how he sort of interacts with other members of it. So after Luffy and Zoro leave, they obviously are setting out to sail to go find more members of their crew, and they come across our first sort of pirate antagonist, and the first person with other devil fruit powers, which is going to be Buggy the Clown and sort of his pirate crew on Orange Village. And this part of the first 3 volumes is really where I started to get hooked into One Piece, because I find this whole sort of village section, the whole Orange Village with Buggy the Clown and Luffy and Zoro, and then meeting Nami and sort of the different characters they meet on Orange Village, and sort of the things that we learn about Luffy's character, and sort of how he views his friends, like why he fights for his friends and standing up for his friends, and sort of wanting to protect his treasure and wanting to fight for people who they have their own treasure they want to protect. And I think this whole Orange Village arc is just a really good base to where we get to understand and sort of realize what Luffy's ideals are. So like I mentioned, this is the part of the story where we meet Nami, actually, and I'll get more into her character in the character section, but I have mixed feelings on her. I like her in in some instances, and then in other instances it's like, why the heck are you doing that? Because she's doing things that go against our Luffy and Zoro and them. It's like, well, come on, you need to help them out. But touching back onto sort of why Luffy fights and what he fights for and like what he protects, one of the things in this arc that sort of demonstrates that is we meet the dog Chow Chow, however you pronounce it, the dog who basically sits in front of his old master's shop, just hoping that his master will come back. And Luffy sort of recognizes that this dog, because we see how the dog tries to put up a fight against Buggy, and his pirates, his first mate, I think it's Moji, sorry, and his pet lion Richie, which I just thought was the funniest name. Like in One Piece, we haven't had too many normal names. Like Colby, I think, is sort of normal. But so far, they've all been sort of funny, sort of ridiculous names. And Richie, for a name of a lion, just it's sort of funny how the one normal name is for a giant pet lion that, Buggy's first mate rides on. But with Richie and Moji, this is where we see Luffy starting to want to protect and fight for people who have their own treasures that they, protect and fight for themselves. And with Cho-Cho the dog, we see that, he stands up to Richie and Moji, trying to protect his master's shop, when he's just a tiny little dog and he's getting beat up by this giant lion, and Luffy sees this and, it clearly touches something in him, and he, just decides like, all right, that, this is someone who I'm going to protect. I'm going to protect this dog because I love that he's, trying to fight for his master and protect his master's property. But obviously, as things move along, we see that Nami eventually starts to team up with Luffy and Zoro to get rid of Buggy and his pirates, because they have the map to the Grand Line, which they want because that's obviously where Luffy wants to go. And they just have some treasure that Nami wants to steal because, as she mentioned, she just, she's a person who goes around stealing things from pirates because, as she puts it, pirates are just really stupid and easy to manipulate and whatnot. And, from Buggy and his clown, what she did to them, can't see why she thinks that, because she seemed to outsmart Buggy and his crewmates in a lot of the situations, if not most of them. I guess this is a good point to talk about. Like I mentioned, Buggy is the first other person besides Luffy who we meet in the story who has eaten a devil fruit and has the cut power, or the cut fruit that he ate, and he's able to sort of split himself apart, do all sorts of different things with it. And I thought that Oda's creativity with his power set was actually really interesting. I didn't think that you could I wasn't expecting some of the things that Oda had Buggy do, when he would like split his body in half and like send his legs flying with knives attached to it, and how I can't remember what his ultimate move was, but when he like split his body up into all sorts of pieces, I just thought it was a really interesting, probably honestly, at least right now, I thought it was a little bit more interesting power than Luffy's. But I thought that the strategies that both sides employed, Buggy and his crew, and then Luffy, Zoro, and Nami, the different things that they, sort of did to try to defeat one another, I thought it was pretty creative. It wasn't the standard just, going in and fighting. And I hope this stays, going forward into One Piece, but it seems like this is going to be one of those sort of stories where Oda does take the time to think out strategies for battles. It isn't just, mindless, just standard mindless anime fights. There's actually strategy behind the characters' moves, how they interact with their powers. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing what other crazy, powers that Oda is going to be able to come up with. Because already just the first two that we're introduced to, like a rubber body and being able to split yourself into parts, already it's really fun and just interesting. And then I guess the last part on the battle between Buggy and his crew with Luffy, Zoro, and Nami, I really liked the end result of how Nami actually defeated Buggy by once he used his ultimate and she just tied up all of his parts and he's just basically a head and arms and legs. It was just so funny. And if you didn't, obviously Buggy the clown, he was already a clown and he became even more of a clown somehow. But yeah, I just thought that instance with Nami thinking quickly and doing that so that Buggy couldn't reattach all of his body parts, I thought that was really fun and just a fun way to end not fun and also clever way to end the fight. So now we can get into talking about the characters, sort of my favorite characters so far, what I like about the characters or what I dislike. I think definitely right now, I think Luffy's probably my favorite character just because of just how funny he is, like how much joy whenever he's on screen, he just says what he's thinking. He doesn't hide. He's just straight up about it. And a lot of the things he says, it's so blunt and not sugarcoating anything that it just puts him in like the most hilarious situations. When he's when he's with Colby and he's insulting Alvida, and Colby's just freaking out because he's never seen someone stand up for themselves like that. And just all of his interactions with all the different characters that they meet, they're always just a joy to read through. And like I mentioned earlier, I really like this sort of ideal and sort of I guess ideal is the best word, but this idea that Luffy really likes to fight for and protect his friends who when they show that they're willing to stand up for themselves and fight to protect their own, treasure or ideal or goal, whatever that may be, like we saw with the dog, Zoro and Colby, all these sort of people. Luffy stands up and backs up all these different characters because he believes that all these characters are fighting for something just and, something that's, good in the world. It also seems so far that we've gotten a few looks into, I think besides wanting to get the One Piece, which is, get the One Piece and become the king of the pirates, it seems like so far one of Luffy's biggest sort of things that grounds him and keeps his sort of eyes on the prize is the straw hat that Shanks gave him in the beginning of the story, and how Shanks told him, I want you to keep this hat for me and give it back to me when we meet again. And Luffy, he loves Shanks, and I'll have to go back and see, but I can't remember if he saw him as a father figure. I can't quite remember that, but that's what I got from the impression of how much Luffy seems to care about Shanks, and how he, when Buggy mentions his past with Shanks, how Luffy, stands up for and will fight people and not take any crap from people who speak badly on Shanks, because it seems like Shanks is the one who sort of showed Luffy what it means to be a true pirate, and standing up for your friends, not letting people insult your friends, that like we saw at the beginning of Volume 1 when Shanks comes and rescues Luffy from the group of pirates who's on the island with them. I guess that's a good segue into talking about Shanks. Like I said, we've only seen him for a little bit, but I'm almost certain he's going to come back. We've already seen some flashbacks with him and Buggy when they were pirate mates on, I think, Captain Roger's cruise ship, when they were younger. So I think he's going to be an important character to come, not to mention the fact how we saw just how strong he was in the few, chapters that we saw of him, and when he was fighting people, he was just the strongest one around. So I'm expecting some good things to come forward with him and his character, and sort of what how Luffy is going to meet back up with them, and what that's all going to be like. And obviously we also learned that Shanks and his crew are the ones who originally got the Gum Gum fruit. I don't think they mentioned where they got it. They just said they had picked it up on the Grand Line. And so that's, the first person that we sort of learn about the devil fruit from, and he's the one who tells us about how the devil fruit gives you access to powers of the sea devil, but in exchange of not being able to swim anymore. I guess this would be a good time to touch on Colby too as a character, because he's only in it for a little bit in the first 3 volumes at the very beginning, and sort of, we find out, he wants to be a part of the Marines to, protect the seas, to keep pirates from harming villages like his and whatnot. But it's also through Colby that we start to learn about Luffy's sort of ideals and what he values and what he respects, because when Luffy first meets Colby and Colby doesn't stick up for himself, he just lets Alvida walk all over him. Luffy doesn't respect Colby. He makes fun of him, he calls him a coward and things like that. And it isn't until Colby sees Luffy stand up to Alvida, like I mentioned, that he starts to realize, hey, I can do this too. I can stand up for myself. I want to be a Marine and, fight against people like Alvida and stuff. And Luffy's sort of the first person who shows Colby that he has what it takes to fight for his ideals, fight for what he thinks is right. And then obviously when Luffy and Zoro leave Shelltown, Colby stays behind because he's going to join the Marine base to, start his journey into the Marines and, get ranked up higher and higher. We'll see where he actually ends up, because I think, like Shanks, I think he's going to come back because he just seems like too much. To introduce him so early on and to have him sort of, for Oda to clearly state that he wants to become a Marine who's opposite of Luffy, who wants to be the king of the pirates, I think he's setting it up clearly so that in the future, when Luffy is a more famous pirate and Colby's older, there's going to be some interesting interactions between them, because Luffy is a pirate. But like we've seen, Luffy isn't a normal pirate. He isn't like Buggy and them who go around, terrorizing villages and people like that. There's clearly a distinction in the pirate code, I guess you could say. Luffy's on one end and Buggy's on another, and so it's going to be interesting to see how Luffy's and Colby's relationship as they get older and progress through the different ranks of their worlds. Luffy progressing through the pirate world and Colby through the marine organization. It's going to be interesting to see when they actually meet up again. So moving on to my second favorite character that we've met so far, Zoro. Zoro is an interesting character because when we first meet him, we just sort of hear about his name and sort of the presence that, his sort of infamy is, precedes him, because whenever people say his name, people know who you're talking about, like the demonic beast Zoro, the pirate hunter, things like that. He has all these sorts of nicknames because he's already pretty famous in the world. And when we do eventually meet him and he talks with Luffy and how he tells Luffy he doesn't want to join his crew because he despises pirates, he's a pirate hunter, things like that. We sort of get to understand that he's going to be sort of the, let me think, I guess sort of like a Todoroki, the characters who are like the calm and cool collected characters in anime. So in that regard, I sort of already have an understanding of who his character is, how he operates, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how Oda develops that, because so far he obviously Luffy wants to be king of the pirates. Zoro says he wants to be the best swordsman in the world. So these sort of goals are sort of like standard, shonen tropes, like of I want to be the best in the world. I want to be the strongest hero, but what the heck? But one of the things I'm most interested about reading, in the future about Zoro is how this sort of goal is going to work out for him, because I don't think it's going to be, with as popular as One Piece is, I just don't think, maybe there will be some, common standard tropes, but I just have a feeling that there's going to be some subversion in this story. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just a prediction of mine. And so I think the path that Luffy, Zoro, these are the only two characters we've met so far who sort of have these sort of standard shonen tropes and goals. It's going to be interesting to see if Oda plays with those tropes going into the future and how he goes about, getting his characters to those goals. And one of the things that I like about Zoro's sort of mentality and how he plans to go about becoming the best swordsman is he mentions how, wanting to be the best swordsman, he will never be able to turn down a duel from another swordsman, because he, being the best means he has to prove himself and fight anybody who claims to be a master swordsman. He's going to have to beat them. So he sort of states how he just can't turn down from a fight with, another swordsman. And I really like that about them. It just sort of shows his sort of tenacity and how ironclad his will is to reach his goal. And we've also started to get a little bit of backstory on Zoro, sort of his upbringing. When he was a kid, we meet I think it's just a friend. I don't think they're related, but we meet this girl that he used to practice sword fighting with when he was a kid, named Kuna. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it. I probably should have went to the anime to see how they pronounce it there, but she's someone who, when Zoro was a kid, was never able to beat her, even though, he had his two sword style and she just had the standard one sword. She would always best him. And, that was sort of, that seems to be, it'll be interesting to see if, I think she'll probably be brought up more going forward, since we've already been introduced to her this early on. I think this is she's gonna be someone who's important to Zoro's backstory and sort of how he views the world and how he goes about living his life and living his ideal. And one of the things that I really loved about his backstory and sort of the sentiment he holds towards his old friend who we learned passed away when he was a kid. He talks about how he isn't going to stop trying to become the best swordsman or the most renowned swordsman until his name is heard in the heavens, so that she knows that he is, he's accomplished his goal. And I just really loved that sentiment, and I thought that was a really touching part to his backstory. I guess it wouldn't hurt to touch a little bit on Captain Morgan and his son Helmeppo, since this is where they were introduced in the story after Zoro. Like I said, these are the first people who we're introduced to who are supposedly good guys, but they're clearly not. They're, when we're introduced to Captain Morgan, he's wanting to raise a giant, giant statue of himself, dictators and things like that do. So, clearly, he's not someone who's to be trusted or liked. The final two characters I wanted to talk about were going to be Nami and Buggy the Clown. So with, like I said, Nami's an interesting character. I'd say she's definitely the most interesting, because we don't fully we understand her intentions, like what she wants to do. She states she steals from pirates. She wants treasure. She wants the Grand Line map as well as Luffy does. But there are times where I really like her, when she's like helping Luffy and Zoro defeat Buggy and his pirate crew and all that. Like in those parts when she's thinking on her feet and all that sort of stuff, she's really fun to read in the story, and her character's really interesting. But then she'll turn around and say that she's not she hates Luffy and pirates, and she doesn't want anything to do with them. And in that respect, it's like, oh, come on, you gotta like our crew. But it's gonna be interesting to see how her character develops, because as of right now, she still isn't really friends with Luffy or Zoro. Like Luffy and Zoro, clearly they're crewmates. Zoro has agreed to be on part of Luffy's crew, but Nami isn't that way. She sort of is still, she just wants to. First, she just doesn't want to even team up with them because they're pirates, obviously. But she, works with them because she can get, things that she likes with help from Luffy and Zoro. But she doesn't necessarily seem to like them. Like she doesn't think of them as like crewmates or anything. They're just, two random people that it seems like she, like all other pirates, thinks Luffy and Zoro are just, sort of easily manipulated idiot, pirates. But the things that I really do like about her is, so far she seems to be one of the quickest thinking. She's sly and really tricksy with how she operates, how she navigates like Buggy and his pirates, how she operates around Luffy and Zoro. She seems to really think outside of the box compared to Zoro and Luffy, who are much more like just going full steam ahead, just like straight into the action, no nonsense, just get to the point. Whereas Nami is clearly much more tricksy. She goes around people's backs, she lies, and all of that makes for her character to be pretty interesting because of just the different things that she's able to pull off. And because of that, it's actually really cool to see how she's not really a fighter. She uses her words and her brain and her thinking through strategies and all that to overcome the obstacles that she faces. Whereas, like I said, Zoro and Luffy have a much more straightforward approach of just, being, having to be stronger than the other person and beating them. So the last character we can talk about is Buggy the Clown, who I thought when I first was introduced to him, I didn't think I was going to like at all. I'm not a big fan of clowns. I'm not necessarily like, I don't hate clowns, but they're just, I think most people find them creepy or they're just weird. Like, I don't think I've really ever met someone who's like, oh yes, I love clowns. I mean, I'm sure they're out there. If you are, leave a comment, let me know. But when you first see him and you realize that he's a clown, you don't. I think Oda did it on purpose, so that you don't take him seriously. But then when you start to see, how he fights, his devil fruit powers, he actually has pretty good like strategies, and he's able to think through fights clearly and able to adapt to different situations that he's in. But after learning about his powers and sort of how he operates, I actually thought that he was a pretty good first villain. A lot of first villains in anime and manga, they're pretty plain because it's early on in the story. You don't have a whole lot of built up sort of setting in the setting that the character's in. You don't know a whole bunch about the powers and whatnot. So a lot of times, first villains, they're pretty standard. They're not, there's not a whole lot of variety. But I actually found Buggy to be, quite the opposite. I thought, after learning about his powers and how he uses them, I thought it was actually really cool. And I guess this would be a good place. This is sort of off, a little bit off topic, but I had watched the Suicide Squad, the most recent one by James Gunn, before I had started reading One Piece. And if anybody has seen that, there's a character in there called TDK, the detachable kid, who has a very similar power to Buggy, where he's able to detach his parts from his body. But in that movie, it's much more of it's just a clown power. Like, the TDK not being a clown is more of a clown than Buggy the clown. Because in that movie, his powers are just useless. They can't really do anything. Whereas here, when Buggy detaches his, body parts and stuff, he can send them flying, and his body parts actually have, weight behind them. They can actually, punch people and hurt things. Whereas with the TDK and the Suicide Squad, it was the exact opposite. And so I remember when that came out, I remember seeing reactions and people online mentioning how I didn't know what they were talking about, but they were like, this guy has a power like Buggy from One Piece. So it's like, oh, okay, so there's someone in One Piece who has, a power similar to what we're seeing in the Suicide Squad. But after I saw what was actually in One Piece, it's clear that if you were to have one of the two powers, I would much rather have Buggy's, detachable cut powers as opposed to the TDK, because his was just a joke, and Buggy actually is able to do things with his power. And then the other interesting thing that I liked learning about Buggy and his character is his backstory, where we learned about how he got his powers and how he was actually a former crewmate with Shanks. And that's where they actually got their devil fruit, the cut fruit. And it was actually by accident that Buggy even, ate the cut fruit, because originally he just wanted to sell it for, millions of berries or whatever the currency is in the world. And he had the map of the treasure on the seafloor that he wanted to go get. And, and funny turn of events, Shanks ends up scaring Buggy, and Buggy eats the devil fruit on accident and loses the map in the process, and then tries to jump into the water to get it without, I think, knowing that after eating the devil fruit, you lose the ability to swim. And so Shanks has to save Buggy's life, and it's just funny hearing Buggy retell that story to Luffy and talking about how much he hates Shanks for doing that, and Luffy just nonchalantly is like, oh, so Shanks saved your life. And it was just, and Buggy freaking out that, it is because of Shanks that he is still alive. So I thought that whole scene of learning about Buggy's backstory and how he got the powers was really funny, because that also is a part where Buggy starts to make fun of Shanks in front of Luffy, and talk about how he's just a terrible pirate and whatnot, and that, obviously angers Luffy a lot more, because Shanks is probably the person he looks up to most in the story that we've met so far. But that's pretty much everything I had to say about the characters. I like pretty much most of the characters we met. Nami, I'm still wondering on her what she's going to be doing in the story, because obviously clearly she doesn't really see herself as part of the crew yet. Maybe she'll get there eventually. Obviously Luffy wants her as their navigator, but other than that, I didn't have really any, and that's not even necessarily a problem with Nami. It's just something interesting to take note of. But besides that, like all the other characters, I actually found all their stuff to be, really, really fun and enjoyable. So I'll end off this review with just talking a little bit about the setting in the world of One Piece. We've gotten a little bit of information on it, not a whole lot. We obviously learn about the devil fruits, and there's all sorts of different versions of them, which give you, a whole range of powers. Obviously, we've only been introduced to 2 of them, but I'm going to be curious to see what sort of powers we get in this world. Like, are they all going to be sort of like standard anime powers, like, lightning, fire? The Luffy's is probably the most unique so far. I think Buggy's is while it is unique, I think it's, sort of in line with other anime powers. But I'm wondering if it's going to just start to get crazy, or if we're going to, continue to see, more standard powers that we see across all sorts of anime and manga. I wouldn't mind either. I think that seeing how, like, fantastical and absurdist One Piece can get, I think we're going to be getting more of the, ridiculous far out powers, which I'm all for. That's one of the reasons why I also wanted to, start One Piece, is because just hearing about how it's, not your standard sort of story. But we don't know too much about the world yet, like the world that they're on. We know that they're in an area called East Blue, and that there's this area called the Grand Line, where if you're a real serious pirate and pirating, that's where they go. And apparently it's incredibly dangerous, so I don't expect to see Luffy and our crew go there really anytime soon. I think that'll be a little bit later on in the story, because Buggy was trying to get to the Grand Line and they hadn't got there yet. So with Luffy still even just trying to gather up all the members for his crew, I can't imagine they're going to be setting out for the Grand Line anytime soon. But it's going to be interesting to see when they actually do set out there, because they now have the map from Buggy, what's going to happen once they get there. But that about wraps up everything I had to say about the first 3 volumes of One Piece. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, sort of my thoughts and analysis on, the first 3 volumes. Hopefully, if you liked it, be sure to leave a like and comment down below. Tell me what you liked about these, the beginning of One Piece. Who are some of your favorite characters? I want to have a discussion with you guys. This is a story that I've been anticipating to start for a little bit, and now that I'm finally starting it, and I'm already, just 3 volumes in, I'm really loving it. It's just, I can't imagine it's going to go anywhere but up from here. So definitely, leave some comments. Tell me what you think about my predictions. If you think I got anything right, or if maybe I misremembered some facts. You're always free to correct me down there. I'll be looking at those. But be sure to subscribe going forward, so you can catch my reviews in the future. I haven't decided yet. I think for right now, so far, I'm splitting up. I'm going to be doing the reviews with the omnibuses. So like with this one, it was the first 3 volumes. I think my next review is going to cover volumes 4, 5, and 6, and it's going to stay like that until I get to a point where maybe the individual arcs, because this covered, I believe, 2 arcs, the Romance Dawn and Orange Village. But if it gets to a point where the individual arcs are long enough to where it's just, I'll just cover 1 arc in a video, I'll switch to that. But as of right now, I'm just going to be going by every 3 volumes. So be sure to subscribe to look out for more reviews to come. Anyways, this has been Kyle with Blind Koala Reviews. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment down below. Be sure to subscribe. Until next video, later.